Just a quick little break there.
And we're back with the world champ once again. And Mark's the unlucky one to look at the pairings and be like, oh, I see. I'm 0-1 playing against the world champion.
On the same deck, too.
Yes. Oh,
you don't.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
You know, when you hope that you're at least sitting down and you have some sort of like advantage in deck choice or something like that. You go, all right, I got a shot. You know, I'm playing my Tron deck against their Living End or something.
Yeah.
You know, I got this.
Yeah, but definitely, Mark. And this is gonna be we're gonna see Mark here. This is a big match. This is the kind of match where you walk into it, you plan on a fairly easy 0-1 match, and instead you're playing a mirror against the best player in the world live on coverage. So a little unexpected. So let's see how Mark can handle it.
I want to ask about Nathan's hand. We see triple bauble and 1 land.
Could be anything.
Could be anything.
Could even be a boat.
Could even be a boat. Going to take a look at Mark's top card. It looks like he revealed an Unholy Heat. Going to play the second bauble. Going to take a look at his own deck. And then think about what to do here. Now, this will be Nathan drawing 2 cards next turn. Oh, on
Assuming
Mark's turn.
That Nathan remembers.
Yes, of course.
Our current world champion can remember the bauble triggers.
And going to play the third bauble. Said I'm taking a look at my top, but I already did, so it's fine. So we see Expressive Iteration is the first draw. And the second draw, hopefully for Nathan's sake, is a land.
Yeah.
And it looks like it was a Steam Vents. As from Mark's side, we see a Ledger Shredder followed up by his own bauble. I'm going to connive here after receiving permission from Nathan. Taking a look, drawing an island. Seeing what he wants to discard.
Yeah, good start for Mark here, obviously. Getting that Shredder out of bolt range is pretty important. And then, the old Shredder into bauble hand is pretty good.
Right. We see Unholy Heat hitting the bin. So that Ledger Shredder grows. We are now looking at a 2/4 flyer in play. And Mark is going to crack the bauble here. Taking a look at Nathan's top card. And going to pass the turn back, drawing. And Nathan going to take a look before the draw step to see what Mark is drawing for this turn.
A lot of looky-loos here.
A lot of looks.
Just look at that. Look at this.
So we see 2 Steam Vents in the hand of Nathan here. So got much better on that 1 land hand to start with. So I guess that happens when you draw a bunch of extra cards.
Yeah.
Place those Mishra's Baubles.
There's a lot of stuff. So a lot of options here. A lot of 1-drops, rule spells.
Looks like going to opt to shock in the Steam Vents. And then thinking about what the follow-up here is, it's going to be nothing on his turn as he passes back to Mark, who will draw a card for turn.
Interesting. So has the dress down and the bolt available, but not much else.
Yeah, we'll see. Is this Ledger Shredder is going to be able to get in here? It's kind of like a stare down at this moment. You see everything is kind of going slow. It's like, all right, I'm going to attack.
Yeah.
Happens a lot. I feel like in these Izzet mirrors.
For sure. Definitely a staring contest at times. Who wants to blink?
Right.
Who wants to get things in play? But right now, Mark is in the driver's seat on the play with a threat in play. So the impetus is a little more on Nathan to kind of get things done here.
Is that a main deck Blood Moon? In Mark's hand.
Looks like it. Yeah, it's kind of, they play 1 sometimes. When you're playing Shredder, you can just kind of dump it.
I'm here for
Get some
it.
free wins here in game 1.
I'm here for it.
Ooh.
And it will be. It's gonna come down.
Here it is. All right. Things are looking a little red here.
Nathan kind of deciding what can I do in the face of this. I already had Nathan has an island in play,
right?
So it's not as backbreaking as it could be.
For sure. If this is Spiral Canal Steam Vents, then it might be an issue. But
we see Dress Down to draw a card from Nathan's side.
Yeah, it doesn't really do a ton here, and Nathan's got to get some something going.
Right.
It's also puts an enchantment in the graveyard for Delirium too, so the Unholy Heat can tag this Shredder sooner rather than later.
Yeah.
See Steam Vents coming untapped, no life. It is a mountain.
It is a mountain. And going to tap 2. Looks like maybe not. Has an Expressive Iteration in hand, can dash a Ragavan, double Spell Pierce in his hand as well. Double Ragavan, Dragon's Rage Channeler, a Bolt, an expressive iteration. So a lot of choices.
Yeah, could dash Ragavan here safely. Could just play Ragavan and channel it, Spell Pierce up. So a lot of options for sure.
Deciding what lands to leave up as well, that'll make a difference. It looks like dashing the Ragavan will be the choice. Mark is tapped out, so he will take the 2, dropping down to 18, going to reveal the top card of his library. It is a Steam Vents. Ragavan jumping back to hand. Nathan making that treasure token.
Yeah, I mean that hit gets in, but it leaves Nathan with only 2 mana up and no threats in place still. So
Yes, I mean Nathan does have a like double spell pierce at this time, but not much else.
yeah, and then the Shredder's still getting in there. So
Yes.
it is also getting closer to Delirium as well for the Unholy Heat, which is important. And it'd probably be difficult for Mark to get the Shredder up to 7 toughness before that comes down. So
It looks like Mark considering playing a second Ledger Shredder here, which would more than double the clock. But so Ledger Shredder getting in, we'll see if Mark actually decides to do that, has the double spell this turn, or if he's just going to pass. So Mark at 18, Nathan at 14. We'll see. And it looks like just going to pass back the turn. So back to Nathan, draw a card. And take another look at the hand that does have quite a few threats in it. It's got threats. We know about the Ragavan that Mark also knows about. Perhaps that's one of the reasons that Mark decided to not play anything further on his turn, because he feels like he would need to answer a dashed Ragavan the next time it comes down.
yeah, I mean the Shredder does sort of do that, or at least threaten to do that in theory. And the Mark has a threat in play, but it's not that fast of a threat. So interesting to see.
All right. A Spire Bluff Canal, not actually Spire Bluff Canal. Once again, it is a mountain, so it does come in untapped. And Ragavan being dashed once again into the red zone. Mark gonna tap down his Spire Bluff Canal, which is also a mountain.
There's only 1 red for Mark here.
Yes.
So we can't see a bolt. And then just gonna let that happen. Nathan has a backup copy of Ragavan, so could have fought there with double spell pierce, but decided not to.
Yes, not worth fighting over the monkey. And pass back the turn to Mark, draw a card for turn. I mean, Pleasure Shredder is just gonna kind of peck away.
Yeah, it just it is pecking, but 14 is still a decent amount. Nathan still has a lot of time here if can't find a second threat.
Yes. We'll see if Mark's going to be able to make this 4th land drop, as well as we will see that second Ledger Shredder hit the battlefield this turn. And thinking about casting that second spell.
Yeah, a lot of timing stuff here because playing a second spell walks into bolt. You could wait and see if Nathan casts the bolt at the end step. When do you connive? When do you not connive? Definitely very interesting, but
Yes,
gonna go for it main phase.
And which one's going to connive first? It looks like he wants to connive. So the first trigger will be on the one with a counter, and the second trigger will be on the one with no counter. In response, we do see that bolt.
Yeah, and then I think there's no heat yet for Nathan. So now Delirium's been achieved, artifact, enchantment, creature, instant, but no heat just yet.
Yes. So it will be important if Mark can get this out of heat range. Take a little more work than that.
Yeah, it's gonna be a little ways there. A few triggers to go. Obviously, Nathan could help out by playing a second spell, but
yeah, we'll see this. Looks like Mark will bin an unholy heat of his own. So, oh, that was the trigger from the first.
got it.
Yep,
so still got resolve that trigger, even though Shredder's not there anymore. So we have a second Shredder trigger as well as the consider.
Right. He had put the one with the counter on the stack first.
Correct.
That he pointed to that one first, and then had the trigger from the second one. So first in, last out.
Yep. It looks like we're just clearing that up on the table.
Yes.
And a little bit here.
Yeah, I think maybe Mark was saying he wanted to resolve one with the counter first, and then, but he had pointed to, like, I want to do this one first. So which one goes on the stack first is the one that resolves last.
Yeah.
So I think there was just a little confusion onto how that was supposed to be done.
Maybe consider, that was all consider also. So
right. also has to resolve the
So
Ledger.
technically, they should be above the counterspell in the graveyard.
Right.
We don't care about graveyard order, whatever.
Yes, we'll see the counterspell hit the bin. So either way, the Ledger Shredder does grow. This is now a 3/5.
And it's staying home.
Staying home.
Wow, playing some Ragavan defense. Interesting.
Yeah. I don't want to let Nathan have any more free hits with the
thing is, now this gives Nathan time to get iteration, kind of get things going. This is a little some blue here, Blood Moon in play, only one blue available, but
right.
I mean, having time to play iteration is pretty powerful.
Yes. Let's see, Egg on a Ledger Shredder of his own here with the option to play this turn. Has the trend 2 mana up. And Nathan deciding if that is in fact what he would like to do here. I would also be able to. He would also be able to leave up the spell pierce if he does this. Oh no, he would not.
Only one blue.
Sorry,
that's the issue. So
that's a
the
problem.
treasure. It's if you exile all these shredder, you probably have to cast it, and then Nathan has a bunch of 1 mana spells in hand anyway. So if you play 2 threats here, so, but the more threats Nathan, the more cards Nathan plays, then the shredder on Mark's side will cut.
and takes a good long look and decides what to do here. He said growing that Ledger Shredder anymore might be a problem.
Yeah, it's pretty hard to not play a spell if you're Nathan here. I think you lose better forever. Can't play anything else, and then once Mark gets the untap, he plays like in block or whatever, it can be risky with that Ledger Shredder. And the Shredder is growing also. It's now 3 power, can be 4 power next turn. So
yeah, I mean, could be trying to look to Murktide, which is double blue, and not having second blue source, letting the Ledger Shredder go for perhaps a Murktide.
For sure.
But
gotta cast it.
Ledger Shredder will come down and triggering Connive from Mark's Ledger Shredder.
Unfortunately, Nathan was the second spell, so there is no trigger for Nathan's turn.
Right.
Even with a spell following it. A lot of times it feels like when you just play a spell, Shredder Connives, but it is has to be the second spell, so in yours.
Oh.
Yes, no, maybe so.
Thinking about it.
You're
First
right.
Ragavan, and then passing the turn.
Interesting. So not playing a channeler, leaving up a red. This is not a blue red again, so spell pierces in hand are not 5, which is important to note. I guess the problem with the channeler is that it's a 3/3 has to back. So yeah, with that 3/5 in play, doesn't want to just lose it. So gonna hold that one back. The drawback doesn't come up too often, but does come up occasionally.
The Shredder. And it's gonna get in. No block. But so Nathan's gonna take that, drop down to 14.
Nathan should be at 10.
Nathan should be at.
I believe, yeah.
I believe so.
And we see this is interesting. The post-combat iteration, so not trying to grow the shredder.
Right, perhaps scared that Nathan, in fact, does have an unholy heat in hand, and wouldn't be able to protect against it. Whereas keeping up the mana to cast 2 spells could grow it to a 7 toughness creature.
Yep. So
we'll see if Mark does, in fact, want to follow up, and it looks like he will. Gonna tap a red here, and let's see what he decides to do. No, gonna untap.
Tap, untap.
Tap, untap. I see it. I believe I see a bolt in hand.
There you go, a white border bolt there. Can't be too much else.
Yes. Don't want to bolt the Ledger Shredder on Nathan's side right now, because it will connive in response and probably grow.
So very, very awkward, and then probably just needs to kill this this Ragavan, all things considered, but
yes.
Gonna go a different route.
The blue and a red tapped, and we're going to Brazen Borrower. Petty Theft. The adventure side of Brazen Borrower, the Ledger Shredder back to hand. So Nathan going to connive and say, all right, back to hand it goes, discarding a land.
Looks like Mark might have missed
Missed
his
his
own
own
connive
connive.
trigger, which is a pretty important trigger, honestly, as you were saying, getting out of heat range. So,
Oh, dashing out. Oh, sorry, not dashing out. Playing out a Ragavan and then passing the turn back.
all right, that's a big one. As we were saying, getting that shredder up to a 5/7 and out of heat range is very, very important.
And it also changes the clock
Right.
where Nathan is at 10, and that would be 2 more attacks
Correct.
in the air. So we'll see. It's hard to remember all your triggers in paper. This is a very difficult thing to do. We've all gotten used to Arena and Magic Online remembering everything for us.
For sure. And again, like we were saying at the beginning, this is a very high pressure match for the 0-1 bracket.
Yes,
A mirror against the world champ on camera is not what you expect going into a round like this.
for sure. As we see, passing back to Mark, now Nathan has both a Dragon's Rage Channeler and a Ragavan in play. That Dragon Rage Channeler is in the air. It would be the one turn it would be able to block because it usually needs to attack.
Does like getting frisky.
It does. That is for sure. We'll see a red tap and bolting that Dragon's Rage Channeler. 4 mana open on Nathan's side. Now we know that he has the double Spell Pierce in hand, but he's still going to let that Dragon Rage Channeler hit the bin.
Yeah, not much to do there. Much mana up for Mark, and it's also the only blue for Nathan too. So, all right, here they come.
Here they come. Trading monkeys.
All right, so we see the hit for 4. Again, that had been 5. Definitely changes the math a lot here. But Nathan's still, Mark's still in the driver's seat.
Right. So Nathan taking a healthy hit there. And what about the work that Blood Moon has done this game?
Yeah, it's been oddly effective. Mark just drew 2 islands and Nathan only drew 1.
Yep.
So Nathan's been a little stuck on mana.
It looks like Mark has another island in hand as well, and able to cast a Brazen Borrower, something that Nathan would not be able to do the current mana base, and conniving here as well.
Yeah, so casting the Borrower main phase and then choosing to connive. One interesting, it is post combat, but it looks like Mark wanted to discard a land anyway, so that part doesn't matter. So,
and it looks like not only discarding land, discarding a basic island. So being like, oh, I don't need any more blue mana.
We're good.
Rub it in Nathan's face.
Odoar is targeting
the Blood Moon.
The Blood Moon. So that is very interesting.
Blood Moon back to Mark's hand here. So now Nathan went from having 1 blue mana to all of the blue mana.
Yes. So I imagine it's going to be a Murktide here trying to unlock Murktide.
Oh, wait, no. Ledger Shredder to start things off.
Yep.
And
then Murktide to follow. That's a big boy.
That's a pretty good play from Nathan's side here. Brazen Borrower and Ledger Shredder kind of just staring down this very large flyer.
Yeah, it's funny. There actually aren't that many instant sorceries in the graveyard for Nathan. We see a bunch of baubles and stuff, but still pretty well sized.
Yes.
See the connive. Like
2 counters.
The connive on Mark's side also, and that Shredder is almost in the range of outclassing the Murktide.
Yes, and it looks like going to discard the Blood Moon. Say, all right, we can play fair from here on out. Ledger Shredder growing, so now officially out of Unholy Heat range.
Yep. And how large is this Murktide?
I believe there were 2 counters, but perhaps it hadn't.
It's still resolving, so
resolved.
The Shredder triggers have to resolve, then the Murktide resolves.
Right. So we see a Spell Pierce hitting the bin from Nathan's connive, Mark's connive discarding that Blood Moon. So both Ledger Shredders growing on either side. Mark's going to draw for turn here.
So size check. We have a 5/7 Shredder on Mark's side and a 3/1 Brazen Borrower, and a 2/4 Shredder on Nathan's side and a 5/5 Murktide.
Right. But Brazen Borrower, not so much with the blocking. So
it's true. Like it can block flyers, so it's fully allowed to block at this board.
See, expressive iteration here on the side of Mark. Now this is a big deal. Getting to look at the top 3, exiling 1/1 to the hand, 1 back to the bottom of the library.
I think it's a skull target.
I believe it is I was just gonna say it's a land, but looks like it is fetching up.
Nailed it.
Nailed it. I do admire all the new artworks and everything, but
they are cool to look at, but they are a little confusing in play.
A little bit. See what Mark decides to fetch up here. It has a good spread of colors.
It gotta be out
So
of islands, I think. I think they only play three basic islands. Yep.
yeah,
So
so it
interesting
looks like
events.
coming in untapped. But Mark is at a very healthy life total here. That will only bring him down to 16.
We have gotten to the point though now where Mark is kind of all in on this shredder though. Mark has this one thing in play, but without it, a ton else going on. And it's connive time. They're getting bigger.
Mm-hmm.
So
Most likely.
they think connives first because the active player stacks their abilities first, and then the non-active player's ability stacks their ability. They resolve first. So
We see that other spell pierce hitting the bin here. Mark's just got too much mana open for those spell pierces to matter, most likely. And another connive. We see Unholy Heat in Mark's
I
hand.
think it's also an Odawara too.
Yes.
So that is pretty good. Oh,
oh.
mommy, mother.
Looks like that could clean up this battlefield real quick.
Yeah, those are definitely two clutch ones.
Does Mark have the mana to do both? It does not look like it.
I will say we don't actually have a clock on the overlay, but this has been a long game.
On game one.
So it needs to be, in paper, of course, you got to be aware of the clock because, if it's a game 2 or game 3 here, could be relevant.
Yes. See, so I played a land this turn. So Ragavan gonna hit the bin, growing that ledger shredder. It's almost getting out of my math abilities here.
Yeah, very, very large.
Very large ledger shredder. Unholy Heat. Definitely have Delirium there. Going to take care of that Murktide Regent. 5/5 hits the bin. Mishra's Bauble. Taking a look at the top of Nathan's deck.
Large shredder.
Yeah, and that's coming across. That is lethal. Nathan's got to do something.
Blocking is the thing.
Yep, has to do it. No choice.
At this point, there's probably one Odawara in Nathan's deck, and that's probably the only real answer to his shredder. So Nathan drawing a little thin here.
Yeah,
we have about 30 minutes left in the round, so still a lot of work to do.
Yes, and we see Dragon's Rage Channeler to hopefully buy some time on Nathan's side. Going to cast that Mishra's Bauble and see a Surveil. Mishra's Bauble going to hit the bin. Taking a look at Mark's top card. And Mark will draw for turn. So one little Dragon's Rage Channeler stands in the way, and it looks like
stands no longer.
So Mark's gonna take that game down.
Yeah, and again, that was kind of a long one. We had about 30-ish minutes left, maybe a little less than that after sideboarding, and of course, Nathan's gonna be in the play here, which is pretty important. But
yes.
We'll see how the Ragavan song and dance goes. See if that Blood Moon comes in or out or not, right?
Right. Like we saw that Blood Moon do a little bit of work on Mark's side, but now that it's a known quantity, do you want to see it in games 3? I mean, are you more likely to fetch up basics and things?
I think that you need to be extremely desperate to try and cheese somebody out with Blood Moon in this matchup. Could it happen? Sure, but I would say fairly unlikely.
You mean in post sideboard?
Maybe right. Maybe if Mark goes into game 3 on the play, he's like, I'm playing against the world champ. I just got to get this guy. Like I'm gonna leave his Blood Moon in and just get him. But aside from that, yeah.
Oh, I like that.
Probably coming out.
So, what other cards do you think we see going in or out here? We see Nathan looking at unlicensed hearses.
Yeah, the hearses look real nice.
Dress down.
Eating away at that graveyard, and also the hearse just grows. The game goes on, and eventually just cruises as a 10/10. Which as you've seen. Once things get to being 7 or more toughness, they are pretty hard to remove. So Hearst looks excellent here.
So are you still looking just for a good balance of, counter magic threats, and, card draw? Like how do you sort of quantify like how much removal do I need to leave in? How important is it that I take care of these, turn 1 Ragavans, but how much is that going to like dilute your deck down that you're going to stop doing what you need to do because you want to cast your turn 1 Ragavans as well?
Yeah, I think it's very play draw dependent. You kind of like deciding if you're on the play, you can afford to be a little more aggressive on the draw, you a little more reactive. It's definitely interesting in a mirror match, because the the big question in Magic is often who's the beatdown.
Mm.
You know, what player is taking the control role, the longer game role, what player is taking the I'm going to try and end this game fast role. We saw in the first round Nathan playing the Elementals deck. It was very clear if the game went long that Nathan was not favored. You know, but now in an actual mirror, it's a little more murky as to what deck wants to be taking each role. And the major signifier is probably play draw. Although some sideboard choices, you know, this is a closed deck list event. So, you know, it's not like you know what's in your opponent's sideboard.
Right.
But, you know, some sideboard choices could change that. But play draw seems like the largest factor here for sure.
Yeah, it looks like Nathan shaving some Dragon's Rage channelers there, saying, you know what, I'd rather, you know, hit my Ragavans. I'm going to kind of like you cut my losses against turn one lightning bolts and unholy heats and things like that.
I think the biggest thing about the channeler is that its drawback is actually a liability of this matchup, where most things high fly and most things that do fly are large. So the spot we saw in that game where channeler came down against a 3-5 ledger shredder, and then it could just attack and have to die. So large Murktides also, channeler does seem like one of the weaker creatures. And again, though, it does seem a little play drawy too, though. I mean, we saw Nathan take him out on the play anyway. You know, could still be okay in the play, but the game's gonna go a little longer. It does seem pretty reasonable.
All right, and we are ready to get into game number 2 here, as we see the players shuffling up, cutting each other's decks, and we are going to get right into it. Now, Nathan will be on the play this game in this Izzet Murktide mirror. Like you said, play draw, big deal here.
Huge. It's funny. I started the match talking about how, you know, for Mark, this is Mark sitting down in a feature match at 0-1 against the world champ. Holy crap. But Nathan's human too. And Nathan right now is the world champ. Currently 0-1 down a game, looking to go possibly 0-2 in a Star City event. You know, when you've won the world championship recently, did well at the Pro Tour recently, you know, just top 8 of the Pro Tour, you know, so there is some pressure on that side too. It might sound silly, but like there's sometimes where, you know, you feel like it's expected of you to do well in an event, you know, a smaller event like an SCG rather than a Pro Tour or Worlds, and you're 0-2, and you get the whole, you know, it's the whole you lose round one, you set up for round two, and they go, "What are you doing here?" It's like, well, you know, it's Magic. You lose sometimes. So, not to say there isn't pressure on Nathan here, also.
Right. We see, speaking of pressure, we see Nathan's pressure being taken care of, Ragavan being unholy heated by Mark in turn 1. So, clears the path for Ledger Shredder, Mishra's Bobble, a really powerful turn 2 play.
Good draw here for the world champ.
Yes.
World champ.
That's for sure. You know, if you got to pick your spots to win, I feel like, you know, Worlds is a pretty good place to pick.
Yeah, it's not too bad, you know. Yeah, this is an excellent draw for Nathan here, obviously. You know, he Mark passed the Ragavan check on 1, but now Shredder's a 2-4, and we're a little different than last game. Both players are slamming in here.
Yes, and Nathan saying, wait, let me connive first before you do on that follow-up of Ledger Shredder and Mishra's Bobble from Mark's side as well. So a mirror play here. And as of right now, these Ledger Shredders would just bounce off each other.
Yeah, the thing is that, you know, Nathan being on the play here, the Shredder's 1 bigger. Nathan gets to untap Levin next play. So Nathan's just sort of ahead, you know.
Right.
So
and
Mark,
look at those graveyards.
right, you know, exactly. You know, Nathan can play a Murktide next turn, whereas, you know, Mark's kind of, you know, not really there yet. So a lot of pressure on Mark here. We're seeing the power of play draw in the matchup for sure.
Yes. We're seeing Nathan deciding, I'm just going to discard a land off of it. And now you can go ahead with your connive trigger, Mark, and let's see what he decides to discard. And it looks like Ragavan will hit the bin. So we have a couple of 2-4 Ledger Shredders staring each other down.
And we have parity now. So, you know, Nathan, I imagine Nathan really wanted to discard a spell there, but hand context wise just couldn't.
Tapping a blue here on Nathan's side. Oh, untap. Deciding what to do here. We see an expressive iteration on the top of his hand as well as a consider. The consider will be cast. Taking a look at the top card. Let's see. Bennett.
And we saw Nathan lead on the land there, which kind of cuts off the iteration as a play. And then a slight pause. Just going to consider the options.
I'm just going to pass the turn back. So I'm leaving 2 mana open. At the end of turn, Mark will crack the bauble. Going to draw 2, 1 for the draw step and 1 off of the bauble. Bolt and a Ragavan. So that Ledger Shredder is out of bolt range at the moment. Has a Murktide of his own. Expressive iteration is a choice here, but has already played a land.
Yeah, we see a subtlety here also. Interesting card. Obviously, can handle Murktide. I think hard casting it isn't a crazy thing in this matchup either. So, but definitely not clear exactly what we want to see here. We're going to see an iteration actually.
An iteration after making a land drop. So what do you think Mark wants to dig for here? Oh, sorry, nothing.
Flusterstorm it is.
Flusterstorm.
Interesting, honestly, on both sides. So,
you know, knowing that Mark wasn't going to be able to benefit from a land drop or something here, what do you think Nathan's thought was on Flusterstorming that?
I mean, there's still a bunch of ones in the deck. Hitting a bobble or any one drop still allows for the 2-for-1. I think that Nathan's probably going to cast Flusterstorm with or without that land drop. Just want to kind of keep things going here. Nathan's a little bit ahead. Things are starting to even out a little more, but cash and Flusterstorm and get it done.
Yes, as we see, Mark's starting to fill up his own graveyard, and we do know that Mark does have a Murktide region in hand, as we got a little peeksies before from these awesome hand cams.
Yeah, hand cams are great. Coverage does look phenomenal. I mean, not to break for the fourth wall or anything here, but we are on coverage and it does look great.
It does, as Nathan plays a Scalding Tarn and passes the turn back to Mark. So it's kind of a stare down here. Who's gonna break for? Who's gonna blink?
Yeah, I mean, the Shredders do sort of just stare at each other. There's some large toughness there. And now you can see here, this makes Nathan's countering of the iteration look very, very intelligent because realizing the game's going to slow down like this, just don't allow your opponents 2-for-1. Just take your exchange and kind of try and find your spots. And, we'll see who blinks first on a Murktide. And there you go. Mark's coming in.
And there it is. Into 4 open mana. I feel like that takes a lot of chutzpah there.
Yeah, a lot of gusto. And looks like Nathan does have the counter spell.
Yep.
Does Mark have a follow-up Flusterstorm or something like that to defend?
No, not at all. Murktide quickly hitting the bin.
All right,
saying, go ahead, your turn.
This big opening for Nathan now. Only 1 mana available. Now, Mark does have the subtlety.
Yes.
So if Nathan goes for a Murktide here, Mark can answer it, although at a card disadvantage.
Right. We'll see if that will be the follow-up from Nathan here. Also, Mark deploying that expressive iteration earlier after playing a land on turn 3 doesn't have a 4th land to play.
Yep. Now you see Nathan's got free carte blanche to resolve his own iteration, and things are starting to fall apart here a little bit for Mark.
Right, gonna cast that Mishra's Bauble. That's gonna trigger the connive, so they will both connive. One of the things about having like the equal ledger shredders out there. So Mark conniving away a Ragavan. It did look like a Murktide went to Nathan's hand off of that expressive iteration.
It's a big one.
That is a big one. We'll see the ledger shredder on Mark's side grow while the ledger shredder on Nathan's will not. But because of the increased toughness, they would still bounce off each other.
Yes. So Mark is winning the shredder battle in play right now. But
this Murktide coming down.
Yeah, the thing is that Mark's almost assuredly going to subtlety this. But the issue is that it's just a winning sequence for Mark. While he does win the battle here of yes, Murktide will not resolve this turn. The war is that Nathan has 5 or 4 lands in play, maybe 5 to Mark's 3. Mark's shredder's a little bigger, but Nathan's definitely up on cards here, having resolved an iteration, having countered an iteration. So, we'll see how the subtlety goes, but I think things are looking pretty good for the world champ.
And Nathan being a little mathematical on what to exile from the graveyard in order to cast this Murktide Regent, going to make sure maybe it'll remain like Delirium and things like that for Unholy Heats down the road. So just 2 counters on this Murktide Regent. It's only 5/5.
Yeah, it's an interesting balance between wanting it to have 7 toughness against Unholy Heat, but also wanting to keep your Delirium, and then also want to keep spells in for the next Murktide Regent too.
We'll see Mark shocking in land number 4 here as well, dropping down to 15. And that's got to be, that's interesting what the follow-up is going to be here. Are we just going to see subtlety coming on down? Like a next turn or something?
Yeah, I'm not sure, honestly. The sizing on subtlety is not very impressive. It's only a 3/3 flyer.
Right.
And now, the Murktide is resolved. Mark declined to use subtlety on it.
Mm-hmm.
And now sorta is under pressure to answer this board. That lightning bolt in hand does not look too good.
No
real targets for it. Except for the face, I guess.
There's always upstairs.
Yep.
We'll see. Looks like going to tap 2. tapping double steam vents. Oh, brazen bar, petty theft once again, coming in here, bouncing Nathan's Murktide Regent. So is able to cast it again, but perhaps not as good this time. It was as it would almost empty Nathan's graveyard.
Yeah, this is Mark is answering the things in play, but not really doing so at any sort of an advantage. The Murktide's been bounced, but it just kind of come back down, and there was no real attack made or anything like that. So like, while that did bounce it, it feels like a very temporary solution to the problem. So we'll see. And now Nathan's just playing the Shredder, playing the Murktide. It's back. There's still a graveyard there too, so not going to be as impressive. But I mean, hey,
Yeah.
it's in play.
It looks like one counter perhaps this time,
One's
and going
enough.
to double connive now that you might be winning the Ledger Shredder war. No longer, as we see the Bolt take care of the second Ledger Shredder in response to that connive trigger.
And so Bolt finds a target, but still a lot of stuff in play for Nathan.
Yes, and before that Murktide is able to come onto the battlefield, got to resolve these connive triggers.
We're going to have a potentially 3/5 Shredder. Nope, just a Shredder land, so it's still 2/4.
Yep. So a 2/4 Ledger Shredder and a 4/4 Murktide Regent up against Mark's 3/5. So still sized. Mark's still at 15 life, Nathan at 17. So fairly high life totals on either side.
Yeah, the thing here is that, what is this?
Pyromancer, I believe.
Ooh, fancy. That Nathan has a second Murktide and 2 spells in hand. And of course, the Murktides grow each other. So if Nathan can just cast Consider, cast Bolt, play Murktide, we'd have 2 very large flyers in play.
And it looks like Subtlety, having never been cast, is just going to be a Seasoned Pyromancer fodder. So going to come in, make a 1/1 token. Mark going to be able to draw anew. He's going to now have a couple cards in hand. We'll see if this will work out advantageously for Mark, as Nathan bins an unlicensed hearse.
Yeah, I think he just wants to get cards to graveyard for the next Murktide, honestly. I think it's Murktide time. Fire up the Consider, maybe fire up the Bolts, and just get those large flyers in play and get things going.
Yes, Bolt to take care of the Seasoned Pyromancer. Going to connive off of that. We'll see. Consider will hit the bin. So that Ledger Shredder even bigger now.
Yeah, now it's Nathan's turn to connive.
Going to discard a Ragavan and saying, okay, is my Bolt good?
Yeah, more cards in the bin for Murktide. Unfortunately, not a spell for Nathan, but definitely if the Consider hits an instant or sorcery and then the connive hits an instant or sorcery, it's a much different game sizing wise, but still a pretty good spot.
That is right. And remember, the first Murktide is going to grow with any cards that are removed from the second Murktide.
Correct. So we're gonna have some large Mercs here, and then the clock is ticking. We have about 15 minutes left in this round, so
Mark's
definitely.
saying,
If Nathan, who's looking ahead this game, takes this one down, game 3 is going to be a little bit of a crunch.
All right. Mark's saying, hold on 1 second there. Going to fetch in response to what's happening. So Murktide will grow, though, because the cards are removed.
Right. We see a counter spell on the second Murktide.
Right. So that second Murktide not going to make it to the battlefield, but this first Murktide is huge.
Yeah, did its job, though. Really Murktide. And again, we saw only 2 counters go on the Murktide because the Nathan didn't find many sorceries, but still quite good, obviously.
All right. Mark's going to start the turn off with an expressive iteration. Going to take a look at the top 3. 1 to exile, 1 to the hand, and 1 back to the library.
I believe that's a Flutter
I believe so.
Like we're playing a game show, Name that card.
And a second expressive iteration, triggering Ledger Shredders here. So conniving, a land on Nathan's side, a bauble on Mark's side, growing his Ledger Shredder. So it's pretty big.
It is big, yeah. That's a large Shredder.
Is it 5/7?
Yes, and Murktide is currently a 7/7. So
right, and a Murktide is going to be exiled on Mark's side here from that second expressive iteration. So we see a land and a Murktide for Mark.
And Nathan's tapped out, so
Yep. So gets to play his own Murktide.
There's a chance we don't see a game 3 or either way, honestly. This is going to be a full-size Murktide. Mark's Graveyard is stacked.
Yes, it certainly is. I'm going to be digging for those.
Oh,
Gonna scoop them up here. Is that all right? You got me.
You don't win worlds by accident. Has the Odawara in the chamber ready to go. Now we're going to see some pretty fast magic here going into the last game. About 12 minutes left.
Right. Can only qualify by accident.
Only qualify by accident. Yes. Oh, the daggers in the booth. Oh my gut. All right.
Exciting game too, but like you said, definitely a time crunch here.
Yeah, and we could easily see a runaway Ragavan game. Ragavan, Spell Pierce, your removal spell, I gotcha. But these games do tend to go a little longer, honestly. So we'll see if it affects the sideboarding at all. A card like Unlicensed Hearse is gonna be a little worse. Spell Pierce is coming back in. So yeah, a little more emphasis on the faster cards.
I feel like I keep seeing Dragon's Rage Channeler just coming out of Nathan's deck. Like he just shaves one more for every game goes on. He's just like, nah. He just doesn't like the card. But he won't. He doesn't hate it enough to just take it out entirely. He's just like one at a time.
It just match dependent. It's just like now you're on the draw, especially like
Sure.
you just can't have your Channeler running into Shredders and running into Murktides and stuff. So
yeah, those little 3/1 Channeler is not doing much against a 7/7 Murktide.
Yeah. So here we go. Again, about 10-ish minutes left. And we got to get rolling here, Nathan and Mark. We got to shuffle these cards up and get things going.
Oh, they got this.
You think so?
I think so. It's going to happen.
We're going to see a conclusion to this game. No draw?
A conclusion.
There will be
a conclusion.
Do not want to start your tournament 0-1-1. All right. That is...
Have you ever started a tournament 0-1-1?
No comment. Back to the match anyway. So...
All right, let's take a look at these opening hands here. Nathan, 2 lands, threats, spells, counter magic.
I mean, it passes the Ragavan check. We see a removal spell. So
yes, we do. A removal spell and then a Ledger Shredder, which also blocks Ragavan, I suppose.
Yep.
And we'll see. Mark is gonna start us off with a Misty Rainforest. So going down, let's see if it's 19 or 17 here. Most likely going to shock in, and that's what it looks like. It'll be a Steam Vents untapped. So down to 17 goes Mark. What will be the turn 1 play?
Dragon Rage Channeler. Coming in.
And a Mishra's Bauble.
There you go.
Surveilling off of that. Going to keep it on top.
All right. So yeah, keeping on top there means that card's got to be real good because there's a huge impetus to want to just bin almost anything there and try and grow a Surveil.
Yeah, and knowing you're going to draw it off of the Mishra's Bauble as well. So cracking that bauble and then playing a Flooded Strand. Nathan with just a Spirebluff Canal and pass of the turn. So we know that his hand passed the Ragavan check. Is that worth dispatching on this Dragon's Rage Channeler? Any sort of removal or anything?
I mean, yeah, probably got to kill it, but it's definitely a little tough though because Surveils in response can make it a 3/3.
Right.
So, ooh, wow! You see the mega aggressive turn 2 iteration.
Gonna Spell Pierce
wow.
it too.
I'm woo. Both players want to end this game quick.
Yeah, and Murktide not getting in.
The Channeler's staying home. I guess
Murktide, not Murktide.
I guess scared of a Ragavan.
Yeah, I guess it puts up the Ragavan. Now there is a Ragavan in Nathan's hand as well. So
I think there's a big question though if you even want to dash Ragavan on turn 2 because you are, maybe you get it in, but you're tapping out. You're not really doing anything else. So
Unholy Heat is going to take down that Dragon's Rage Channeler. Now was that the protection that Nathan had against Mark's Ragavan? He's saying, you know what, now it's turn 2, turn 3, I don't care anymore.
Yeah, we're a little bit past the Ragavan sub game at this point, I think. So
let's see. Tapping out, fetching up a land, and says go. So Mark untapping and get ready for turn number 3 here. It's interesting that was a very aggressive expressive iteration.
Yeah, very, very aggressive. In Raw, as we saw in the last match, in Raw stack are 8 zeros to hit. So you have a decent chance to hit with a 0, but in Mark's, there's only 3 baubles left.
Right.
And if you don't hit one there, you're just, you're going to get an anticipate rather than a iteration, which is a little bit worse. But
that is very true. So what was more aggressive, the Spell Pierce or the expressive iteration?
Both aggressive, but now, wow, we see Nathan mega punish here for burning that Spell Pierce because the hearse is down and the hearse is not going anywhere.
No, it is not. It is already grown eating a couple cards out of Nathan's graveyard. Ledger Shredder coming down, Mishra's Bauble follow up. So a nice little package there. Ledger Shredder and Mishra's Bauble together, growing that Ledger Shredder, going to try to fill up that graveyard, discarding a Murktide Regent.
Yeah, in the face of Hearse, that Hearse is real good. Obviously, Hearse, not completely neuters Murktide, makes it much more difficult, and then neuters the delirium effect on Holy Heat and Channelers. So these shredders have a lot of work to do, but they could definitely get there.
Right. As quickly as Nathan is going to be putting cards in the graveyard, Mark will be eating them with that unlicensed Hearse.
And don't forget the Hearse is also, it's not just, a graveyard hate card. It's a vehicle.
Yes.
It's going to be a 10/10, sooner rather than later.
We'll see a consider from Mark to kick things off here on his turn number 3. Going to keep it and draw it 6 cards in his bin at the moment. And thinking about what the follow-up is here, because, unlicensed Hearse will keep the graveyard in check. No third land from Mark.
So kept the card of consider, but did not play a land. That is
something
very interesting.
And gonna just take it here from Ledger Shredder. So that is 2 coming across. Mark down to 14. It's need to answer this Ledger Shredder because it can grow out of control. And a Ragavan is the follow-up here in the second main from Nathan, and a pass of the turn. Yeah. So let's see what Mark does here at the end of turn.
Mark's got to have an answer to the Ragavan here with all, an all spell hand.
Unholy Heat to take care of that Ledger Shredder. So perhaps not wanting to double spell on his own turn, and seeing if there was anything else worth keeping that Unholy Heat for.
Yeah, that's a pretty picking up that Shredder is pretty huge. I struggle to think this Ragavan will be successful. Unless Nathan can defend it with multiple pieces.
Right.
Let me see here. Lightning Bolt in hand for Mark as a third land. Iteration, Flusterstorm, a lot of stuff going on.
Yeah, the counter magic. So we see Lightning Bolt targeting that Ragavan. Will Nathan have a response here? It looks like Counterspell pulled to the front of his hand. The question is he going to allow it? Oh.
Yeah, the problem is that if Nathan tries to defend this Ragavan dies to a bunch of other stuff too and gets blocked also. So going all in a Ragavan here is a risky proposition, but that's easy to go for.
It looks like it. And Counterspell on the stack now. Mark's going to say, yep, that's good. Going to crack Polluted Delta. Do a little digging, see what he grabs out of his deck here.
There is a Murktide in Mark's hand. There's a pretty huge one. So I think this is Nathan feeling the pressure of the Hearse. Feeling like, well, my Murktides are kind of dead, and so are my Channelers. I'm going to need to rely more on Ragavan to win this game, therefore I have to defend it.
Right, and Murktide being the biggest threat in the deck.
Yep.
So.
And there's a Murktide for Mark.
Yep.
1, 2, 3.
Debating on what to take out here, because a lot of times they leave in a sorcery or an instant to make the next Murktides better, and also to keep Delirium.
Yep.
So
we see
very carefully.
Looks like 3 spells being exiled. So it is a 6/6, which is unfortunately is exactly in heat range, but the Hearse is kind of keeping that under control mostly. If an artifact and an instant in the graveyard, it wouldn't be too hard for Nathan to get a Delirium kind of out of nowhere.
Also, if Mark is to tap the Hearse and remove instant sorceries from his own graveyard, that would also trigger the Murktide to get bigger.
That is true. That's a cute little interaction there.
And we'll see what Nathan decides to do here. This is a big turn.
Yeah, Nathan is definitely under the gun. This Ragavan, listen, Ragavan is great. It's $80 for a reason, but, here on turn 4, 5, and 6, it's not nearly as impressive.
Is it $80 for a reason?
Yeah. Modern Horizons 2 reason. What is going on here?
I think he's discussing what has been removed from his graveyard so far. He goes, that 4 cards had been removed with unlicensed Hearse. Maybe something got tucked in. Looks like the land was not supposed to be exiled with the Hearse. Or Hearse has, Nathan showed 5 cards in exile, and there should only be 4.
Okay.
So I believe that's what happened there.
So now there's land artifact instant in the graveyard, which makes heat even closer.
Yes. We'll see. Nathan's tapping 2 here. Playing Ledger Shredder. What is the follow-up? No follow-up. So a Ledger Shredder normally played, we've seen them played a lot and just conniving immediately. So what does it say to you that Nathan's unable to do that?
I mean, he's kind of just sitting back here. The thing is that once the Shredder dies, I mean, he could in theory heat the Murktide, but the Hearse is going to make that pretty uglier. And it looks like he's trying to set that up actually. Here's a dispute. So never mind.
A
But
dispute on.
maybe trying to cast the heat in response to the activation on Hearse.
Yes.
So now once the delirium is achieved, now you're in this sort of cat and mouse game where if Mark ever taps the Hearse to exile cards, Nathan can heat in response.
Yes.
So both players have to not do anything kind of. But
And it looks like Flusterstorm is going to counter that mystical dispute, which will set off the connive for the Ledger Shredder on Nathan's side. But that also means that Expressive Iteration is going to resolve on the side of Mark, so he gets to look at the top three. And we already know that Mark's other card in hand was another Expressive Iteration, so that's a lot of card advantage.
yeah, Mark's way ahead here. And again, this partly just the effect of the Hearse, where Nathan has to rely on Shredder and Ragavan more than Murktide and Channeler. So he's having to play more aggressively to defend them, and the Hearse and Murktide are just chilling right now.
They are chilling, that's for sure. We'll see. The Hearse is there. Think about, does this Murktide, when does Murktide feel comfortable getting in? Nathan's at 15, Mark's at 14.
That's a
Are we gonna see them soon?
Pretty good draw. So a second bolt drawn for Nathan. Nathan just got to go for it here. Bolt number 1 on Murktide. It is 6/6. Now, as you were saying, there is the very techie play of hearsing yourself to grow the Murktide. Will Mark see it? Will Nathan go for it? Nathan's already bolted the Murktide once, so
all right. Don't give him as much time.
Here
to
it
think about
comes.
it. It's on the stack.
Double bolt.
Conniving, drew and discarded the land just immediately because that's what he was going to draw. So it looks like going to Crew in response.
Wow. Okay.
So.
All right. So Mark, it's obviously kind of a non-intuitive line to hearse yourself.
Right.
So Mark is a Crew's in response, makes the 4/4, which can block the Ragavan, but now things are slipping a little bit because the Shredder's in play, the Ragavan's in play. Hearse is good and all, but with no other things in play, it's going to be, it's on Mark to kind of get back into this game.
Yes, it's definitely, on hard mode now.
Yeah, and then it's Nathan's the world champ,
right?
So you have to ask yourself, did Nathan miss the interaction there?
Right.
Because if Mark exiles with the Hearse, the game's over.
I mean,
now it's an 8/8 Murktide against 2 wasted bolts and 2 creatures. So was Nathan just saying my best chance this game is you're gonna mess up, or is he saying or you just didn't notice? Which is obviously possible. Mark didn't notice it either. It's a hard thing to notice in the heat of a quick game 3 here. So
right, and in paper, like I said, you're used to like your triggers being remembered for you sort of thing on Arena and things like that.
Yeah.
Paper's tough. It's tough, and I don't know. Once Nathan deployed that first bolt, though, I think
right. I honestly, given the pause, he bolted it. Then he paused, and obviously you're casting one, you're casting both. I think he might have realized.
Was that an snap moment?
Yeah, I think that. So my read of the situation is that he didn't realize it at first. He cast the bolt, and as soon as he cast the bolt, he realized it, and it was like, "Well, I'm in. Right. I just got to go now and hope that Mark misses it." And there's also, the best bluff is one you don't realize you're making.
Right.
Where Mark goes, "Oh, well, he's gonna kill my creature now. Sure, why he wouldn't do this if it didn't make sense." So you don't really think about it. So, but Ragavan's dead. Here's a Shredder from Mark, and Mark's getting back in the game. But again, the clock is ticking.
Yes, the clock is ticking. But as soon as that Ledger Shredder puts, I believe it's Crew 2 for the unlicensed Hearse.
Correct.
So it only has to get a little bit bigger because that unlicensed Hearse is huge.
Yeah, that's what I was saying earlier, where it's just going to be a 10/10.
Yes. He's picking out cards and it looks like double bolt will be taken out of the graveyard on Mark's side. So I'm sorry, from Nathan's graveyard. And it's an 8/8 now.
It's getting big. 2-turn clock.
2-turn clock.
And Mark still has a few cards in hand as well, and Nathan's almost out.
Right. Ooh. You see a subtlety.
I mean, that does grow it. That's a 3/3.
It is. It's looking like he wants to. Oh, it looks like subtlety. Yes, we'll come down here. Going to Crew the 8/8, and across it comes. We're going to see Nathan at 15. Is he going to take it? He's going to jump in front of it with that Ledger Shredder.
I like the play here. Mark changing gears, recognizing that 2-turn clock's in play. Let's get this game over with.
Right. As we see Nathan doing a little more digging, Spire Buff Canal quickly to the bin and going to draw. It looks like a Ragavan here. Blocked very well by that Ledger Shredder that is in play. So just going to play it out. No dashing here. Subtlety, untapping. Tapping the Hearse. back to Mark's hand. Oh, the dice is turned.
Oh wow, we're in turns right now. Holy
No
moly.
wonder he had to change
Yeah,
gears.
that makes sense. So yeah, that blue die at the top of the screen is the turn counter. We're in turns, turn 4. And I mean, as it stands, there's no way this can be anything really but a draw.
Right. Mark needs to win right now.
Yeah. And you see the chump block.
Chump block of that hearse.
Oh boy.
Gonna pass the turn back. This is turn number 5. Gonna draw a card.
Also, Nathan has 17 lightning bolts.
Yep. Mishra's bauble on an island in Nathan's hand. So I guess I was wrong.
Somewhat, yeah. Somewhat anticlimactic finish there, I guess. So the draw happens. Mark, I think, was definitely way ahead that game. With maybe 2 more turns, Mark could take that one down. But very, very tough mirror. Very, very harrowing round 2, gosh. Of course. Wow, that was a crazy one.
That was a pretty crazy match. It was a crazy mirror. Honestly, very exciting mirror. Yeah. I feel like.
And then a very, very different texture in the games. Very, very cool. But that's our whole round. We got no backup this time. So we're gonna have to hop onto a break real fast and come back for round 3. And world champ at 0-1-1 in the tournament. Not the start he wants.